All right, it's like 30 seconds after the previous one, and let's keep going. We're in what we know as book 6 of the Iliad, and Hector just talked to Paris and Helen. And thus Hector of the shining helm rushed through the city, still wearing his helmet and his gleaming armor, his hands covered with dust and grime and blood and all that detritus of the battlefield, still filthy with combat and still longing to go back to help his men and participate in that tribute to Ares, sacrificing all the Achaeans he can to that mad god who still wants his fill of blood. But first, before he head out, he wants to find his wife and his son, Andromache and Astyanax, Scamandrius as he called him. He searched all through the city, going back to his home, and he found one of the maidservants there and asked her, "Where has my wife gone? I see her not here. I have seen her nowhere along the way from Paris's chambers to here." And she said to him, "Hector, she is not with Priam, nor is she in any of her usual places, but she has gone to the top of the ramparts to view the combat all the better, looking, I assumed, for you." And thus, before she could finish, he ran from that house, still dreading every moment that he spent outside the battlefield and looking for his wife. He ran 2 steps at a time up those stairs, up to the ramparts, to the top of the wall, where none but soldiers had typically been standing, keeping their watch in case some freak force of Achaeans should somehow get in front of the city and attempt to scale them. They stood with battle axes and with spears and bows, all ready with that force that stood by to watch the city. Not so many, to be sure, but enough to ward off some small raid or attack on some piece of the city. And yea, a few had already begun. Hector, upon exiting that archway onto the ramparts, he saw his wife standing there, looking like a field general, holding the baby at her breast, having taken it from her servant, who stood beside. And she viewed the battlefield, viewed that combat, which was all too close to the city already. For soon might those men upon the wall be needed, and need to protect that city, and he would not want to see her there when such a time came. He came, and he stepped near her, and she felt his presence, and turned, and was glad. Her face melted into a smile. From what he could see was a stern, battle lover's expression, almost like one who knew combat himself. And she gave the baby to the servant, and she hugged him and wept and spake to him. "Oh, Hector, I have been looking for you upon the walls. I thought you had gone down somewhere in the fighting. I looked among all the medics' tents and among all the soldiers strewn on the field, but could not find you. I am so glad to see you here now." "Yea, Hector, do not go back onto that field. I have a horrible premonition about what is to come. Stay here, protect Troy from the walls, bring the men back, and have all stand atop the walls and protect the city from here. None has ever been able to destroy these god-built walls once they were created by Apollo and by Lord Poseidon of the great chariots and horses. Do not step outside that Aeaean gate, for I fear you may never come back in through that gate again, not on your own 2 feet. Yea, you could bring your men and set them toward that part where the wall is shortest, where it is sloped. For already has Tydeus' son and those 2 Iantes both come in raids with the men, the Achaeans who had gotten closer to the wall. They had put up ladders, and some had even strode across it, on hands and knees, climbing that wall, for it is sloped. Yea, put more men over there, and do not go outside the gates again, but to bring your men back. This I ask you, Hector. Hector saw her, and saw her tears, and the tears welled up in his own eyes, but he stayed resolute. My wife, I cannot go and take my men back from the city. Men have counseled me to do so. Many of the elders have done so. My great friend, my great friend, who's the son of one of my friends, has asked me to do so, but I cannot. I would not be able to face the men and the long-robed women of Troy if I had done such a thing. Such shame would be felt in my heart that I had not done all I could to push these Achaeans back. Yes, we may win for a space. We may extend the war another 9 years, but to what good? They would only be reinforced by other nations. They have an open line of fleets coming in, delivering wine and food and slaves and soldiers. More contingents come by the day to help those Achaeans. How would we ever push them from our shores? They would only grow larger while our stores grew smaller. And I would know in my heart that I had taken the cowardly option and allowed our city to dwindle, that greatest of cities on this earth, to have withered like an old tree that sits where no rain and no sun hits it. And all the branches die, and the leaves fall to the forest floor dried, and it withers and cracks, and spends out its life among none but the ghosts of its once great forest companions. Nay, you go back to the loom and distaff, order your servants to help you in this task, and to help you in all the household works, but do not ask for my cowardly retreat, nor command me, please, in all these actions of the battlefield. I have thought about it many times. Do you not think so? I would want nothing more than to be able to fight from these walls, and to see you at any time I wished, to be able to retreat in safety and have our men feast in our halls. But it is not realistic, my great wife. We are not equipped to last 1 more year under these siege conditions with the rations and food and horses that we have. Already some of the men are grumbling, wanting to eat the horses in the stables, not thinking of how that will impact our forces out on the field and the great chariots that have so far been such a boon to our forces. Nay, I cannot do this thing. I know that some day Troy will fall. I have seen it in dreams. I feel that some messenger of the gods has come to me as I slept and shown me horrible sights, the city burning, our father the king being executed on his own altar to the gods, some Achaeans coming through the city, wrecking and pillaging and taking the women for themselves. I see you under some Achaean's heel in his house, doing all those household tasks that he asks you to do. And our son, somewhere, I cannot see, but I only hope that he will escape the city alive, that he will come into the battle and be able to do you proud, bringing back the blood and gore-stained armor of some slain foe. That men will say someday, this great Scamandrius, the men calling Astyanax little lord of the city, that someday men will say, there goes the Lord of Troy. He is a greater man than his father was. Even if Troy not still be a place, it may be a people, and I would hope that our Astyanax would help to forge some new city somewhere, in great Dardania or in Latium, somewhere that he could call the new Troy, and could become a greater man than I could be, that one who hangs on to a ragged house and a city dying and eating itself from the inside. What lord am I? I do nothing but put a bandage on a gaping wound that is not closed, that will never be closed or healed or mended. I will live to see the last days of my house, or, should the gods grant it, I will long be underground before then, having no desire to bear the shame of seeing such a thing that I helped to bring about. Nay, great wife, I am no hero, I am no good man, nor a great one that you seem to think. I am but another soldier who is doing all he can, though it not be enough. And thus, both weeping, they looked to their son, who was in the arms of his servant. She gave the baby to Andromache, who sat at her breast and looked to his lord father, but recoiled in horror, weeping and screaming. Hector was aghast at this, some portent of the gods, but only then he realized he was still wearing that fearsome horsehair crested helm, with sunken and shaded eyes, looking like some demon of the battlefield. He took the helmet off and held it in front of him, and the baby saw his face and laughed, and played with the horsehair of the helmet's crest, now understanding it not be some monster that stood before him, but his honored father. And at seeing this, Hector and Andromache both laughed as well, all sharing one moment of mirth among the horrors of war. And they embraced, and he said his goodbyes, and went down into the city. He looked back once, and saw her as she turned, noting her beauty and her grace, and all that everything that she stood for and his son stood for meant to him. And he turned back again, knowing somewhere that he would never see them again. Just as he had made his way toward the gate, he caught up with his brother, who was running like a spring stallion who had just been let forth from the stable after a long time wanting to run. And he looked glorious in his armor. Paris spoke to him and said, "Ah, I see I was not too late, brother, just in time to catch up with you so that we may both do our father and our city proud. Just let me find where Pandarus has fallen, and I will bring back his armor and his body alive. Well, alive in terms that we may give him proper burial and clean and wash his corpse. you will show me where this has occurred. And Hector said, Aye, I will do so if it still be among the fallen. Ah, my brother, again, none would doubt your courage and your fighting spirit when you are among the hosts, and you are a great leader of men, and the best archer I have seen. But let us go. And they went and strode from the Scaean gate, and Hector felt a shadow come over him, some chill that went down his spine, like he had not felt before. And he somehow knew again that he would not come back through that gate, that something had passed over him, some final decision had been made that he did not understand, but that the gods all watched on and had decided for him long ago. All right, pretty good one. Hector Andromache scene, one of the best moments in the Iliad, in my opinion. I think most people probably think that too. I thought that was pretty good. I added some things that I thought were pretty strong. Hector, in the story, Stephen Mitchell describes it that like Hector almost has like it seems like he has brain damage or something, because he's saying he knows the city's gonna fall, but that he then like acts soon after like as if he never knew that information. And I did it as a thing where he sees it in his dreams, that it would fall someday, and that he is basically saying like, I know it's gonna fall, but I hope that I'll be killed before then. I probably should have added in some more stuff. There's a few more scenes that I probably could have rounded that out better by talking about how he would like do his best to protect the city or something. But I did think it was pretty interesting where I gave him this like thing where he's like really self-deprecating, and he's talking about, I took a line from the Lord of the Rings movies actually, where I said that he would live to see the last days of his house, which I thought was that's something Theoden says in the Two Towers movie. And I thought that was a great thing for Hector, where if he knows Troy's going to fall, which he somehow does, I explained it as that it was like a God-given dream, which, you know, it could be. Then, and the way that he's thinking about the, like his attacks in the army, like he's so brave on the battlefield, but that in his heart, he knows that he's just fighting a losing battle, that his city is dwindling and his army's dwindling, and he, you know, they keep getting reinforced. I thought that was pretty good too, where it's like acknowledging that the Argives have unlimited ability to, you know, get reinforcements whenever they want, which they do. And the Trojans technically do too. They get reinforcements all the time. Most people explain this as that they hadn't really invented siege warfare at that time. So like, you know, because the Ethiopians, the Amazons, the, you know, Heracles' grandson, whoever it is that comes in, I forget his name now, but there's all these characters that like just come in to reinforce the Trojans, and also like the Lycians. Sarpedon's son is 1 year old, or I think it's Sarpedon's son is 1 year old, so he must have just come back from Lycia, somehow leaving and then returning with his, assuming with his army. So like there's all these, you know, weird things about the way that the siege warfare works, but in my version at least, we're explaining it that like it seems easier for the Achaeans, because it probably is. So that he, the way that I had him describe that situation, I thought was pretty good. And also that we put more emphasis on like why he, I hope that didn't cancel my recording, that I got a little power message. We put more emphasis on why he didn't want to go back behind the city walls, like saying that he did want to, and that he was advised to do so by many people. Also, I forgot Polydamas's name, as you've probably heard, where I was like really struggling to remember it. I don't know why I forgot his name, but that Polydamas advised him, and all the elders of Troy advised him, but he doesn't want to, and that there's actually a logistical reason in my version, where in the regular Iliad it's more that he's just like headstrong, which he is, but they don't have enough stores to last in a siege, and that since the Achaeans would never be defeated that way, they would only be delaying the inevitable, that Troy would like slowly dwindle. And I added a couple of nice like little Homeric similes about that the Troy was like some dead tree that's like withering away on its own or something, and a couple of good ones. I thought that was pretty strong, not only in like telling that scene, which I tried to give as many pieces from that scene as I could, but adding more motivation that I thought was appropriate for making that scene work as a piece of drama in my version. So again, that's another one where I think, like in the previous one, I had that moment with Paris that I would probably lock in as like something I would always tell. I think some of the stuff with this, where Hector is more like in his secret heart just sharing with Andromache that he's more like a defeatist, you know, that he knows he's not going to win, and the logistics of why he doesn't go behind the city walls, all that stuff I'd probably put in my version to keep telling. So I'm pretty happy with that. Again, we're doing this in service of like writing more authentic content for my game project. You know, I want to be able to like capture the spirit of Homer, not necessarily by just retelling what we know as the Iliad, which who knows how many times that's been tampered with, the text of that has been tampered with since Homer told it. That instead I'm trying to, using all the stuff I know, tell something that's like a living version of the story that's different every time, but with the spirit of what Homer would have done. Inserting and changing and updating things as I see fit, but not to be more comprehensible, you know, just doing it in a way that tells the story, but maybe fleshing it out or doing different things. So using the same type of language, I guess, whatever that means for English, which it wasn't written in anyway or told in anyway. But yeah, I think it's going okay. Again, I'm still pretty stilted, but that's inevitable, and we'll just keep doing it every day and trying to get better at it.